States think it was proceeding apace. Is Israel an ally of the United States, Mr. Ambassador?
No, not at all. It is a protected state. It is a client state. Alliances involve mutual, unconditional commitments. That is the nature of our relationship. Under Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, NATO members have an unconditional commitment to aid each other, although the means by which they do that are to be decided in accordance with their respective constitutional processes. Israel has no commitment whatsoever to the United States. In fact, on the contrary, it routinely rebuffs, rejects, and very insultingly repudiates American policies, pays no attention to American interests, pays attention only to its own. I think every country should give primary importance to its own interests, starting with our own. And I don't think we should give a blank check to any country, and certainly not one that is not prepared to help us if we are in trouble.
Of what value, of what geopolitical or foreign policy value to the United States is our relationship to Israel? I ask my question carefully because I'm not talking about domestic political value.
Right. No, I think this is a question which has long been taboo. There are a lot of statements made that Israel is a great strategic asset. It may have been in some respects an asset during the Cold War, when, despite its good relationship with the Soviet Union, it mostly stood with us. But even during the Cold War, it was more of a problem than it was an asset. It got us into confrontations in the region with the Soviet Union, including some near-death experiences with nuclear warfare. Israel, until recently, was not a place from which you could fly to any neighboring country. There are prepositioned munitions in Israel, but they're for the benefit of Israelis, not for us, as we have seen during the genocide in Gaza, where they've been drawn down. Finally, I would just say, militarily, Israel does nothing for us. Politically, it is an albatross around our neck. Most of the vetoes we've had to issue in the Security Council have been to protect Israel from the consequences of its violations of international law, including multiple Security Council resolutions. It may be a very important part of our domestic politics, but it is not an asset internationally.
Mr. Ambassador, can the IDF defeat Hamas?
No, Hamas is the flag carrier of Palestinian nationalism. I don't think this war is properly characterized as a war between Israel and Hamas. I think it is a war on the Palestinian people, a continuation of the policies that were encapsulated in the original Zionist slogan, a land without people for a people without land. But there were people there. And basically, from the very beginning, Zionists dehumanized the indigenous population and sought to evict it. And of course, in 1948, some 700,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes amid mayhem and murder. Now we're seeing the same thing play out in Gaza. In the interim, there was a slow process of digesting Palestinian lands and evicting Palestinians from their homes, often by violence, with the support very often of the legal system, which in many respects is admirable, but which has been complicit in the imposition of something worse than the South African version of apartheid. That is worse than segregation, worse than apartheid, in the sense that apartheid was a crackpot scheme to facilitate the independent development of different nations inhabiting Southern Africa. There is no Israeli intent to allow any development at all of Palestinian culture. In fact, the entire policy and the dedication of politicians like Mr. Netanyahu over the past decades has been directed at precluding any kind of self-determination for Palestinians. So we have a situation where Jewish Israelis demand and have received the right of self-determination, but Arab, Christian, and Muslim Israelis are denied this. We have a situation where Israelis demand the right to be secure in their homes, but Palestinians have no such right. And we have a situation where Israelis demand and should receive the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but no such right is afforded to Palestinians. And this is so unjust as to create the current opprobrium toward Israel, and I'm sorry to say, because of our identification with Israel, toward us, that we now see it internationally.
Doesn't Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has claimed that his goal and the goal of the IDF is to crush Hamas, understand that that's an impossibility? How can he even respond to his own military leaders who've taken the unprecedented step of stating publicly